The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the bailiffs escorted in a tall, composed black woman in handcuffs. Her uniform had been stripped, replaced with a gray jumpsuit. Her eyes, however, piercing, unflinching, carried the weight of 1,000 miles and classified missions. Her name was Lieutenant Commander Amara Shaw, the Navy's top SEAL sniper, but today she was nothing more than Defendant 2279 on the docket, charged with insubordination, destruction of military property, and gross misuse of classified equipment. Amara stood accused of detonating a weapons cache in Afghanistan against direct orders. What the public didn't know was the mission had already gone dark, her commanding officer never returned, and dozens of civilians were about to be caught in the crossfire. She made the call. She pulled the trigger. She ended the threat her way. The prosecution painted her as rogue, dangerous, a decorated soldier turned defiant. Reporters filled the gallery. A few even smirked as they scribbled headlines, eager for the takedown of the Navy's rare black female SEAL. The judge, a stiff former JAG officer, didn't even look up as he ordered, "Keep her cuffed for the duration." From the back row, one of the jurors whispered, "She doesn't look like a hero." Amara said nothing. She simply stared forward, muscles tense, like she was still behind the scope. She wasn't afraid, but she was tired of being reduced to her skin, her gender, her defiance of what they thought a Navy SEAL should be. This wasn't about justice. It was about control. And that's when the side door creaked open. Boots echoed. A white uniformed figure entered, silver stars gleaming on his shoulders. The entire courtroom fell silent. Even the judge paused. The reporters dropped their pens. The man didn't speak. He simply approached the bench and handed over a sealed folder. Inside was a message stamped, "Eyes only, Joint Chiefs authorization." The judge's face went pale as he read. His gavel hung in the air. The admiral turned toward Amara, met her eyes, and nodded once. That moment changed everything. The courtroom emptied under recess, but murmurs still swirled like storm clouds. Amara sat silently at the defense table, her wrists still bound. Her attorney, a junior Navy counsel with a shaky record, leaned in and whispered, "What the hell is in that file?" Amara didn't answer. She'd signed too many NDAs, buried too many ghosts. But inside her mind, all played again, Operation Whisper Dagger. A covert mission in the Karengal Valley where intelligence flagged a warlord preparing to launch sarin attacks on U.S. allies. Amara and her team were deployed with one goal: eliminate the threat quietly. But things went sideways. The local contact was compromised. The warlord's base turned out to be a front for a much larger bioweapons lab funded by an enemy state. High command hesitated, waiting for orders. Amara didn't. She coordinated an unauthorized drone strike and neutralized the compound with explosives. What followed was a media blackout, a closed-door debriefing, and a disciplinary review that spiraled into full-blown charges. To the brass, her decision defied command structure. But to Amara, it saved hundreds of lives, including her own team's. Her mistake wasn't the strike. It was assuming her reputation would protect her when she challenged authority. Now, sitting in that courtroom, she could feel the weight of their betrayal. She'd served without hesitation, shattered every physical and mental test SEALs had to offer, and still, they'd turned on her. Not for what she did, but for daring to think, act, and win without their permission. The admiral returned, this time with the judge in his chambers. The tension outside thickened. The media couldn't touch the story anymore. The prosecution looked shaken, unsure whether to proceed. They didn't know what had just shifted, but Amara did. They'd unsealed the real report, the one stamped classified, level 10, the one that confirmed she didn't just act in defense of her team, but prevented a biochemical catastrophe that would have reached a NATO base in 72 hours. And now the court had to decide, was she a hero or a soldier who forgot her place? When the court reconvened, the room had changed. Gone was the confident smirk on the prosecutor's face. Even the judge seemed unsure, his gavel resting quietly at his side. The admiral, now seated directly behind Amara, nodded toward her attorney. A silent cue. Your Honor, the young lawyer said, voice steadier now, we request permission for the defendant to address the court directly. The judge hesitated, but finally nodded. Granted. Keep it brief. Amara stood. The cuffs were still on her wrists, a reminder of the system's distrust. She looked around, at the jury, at the cameras, at the uniformed officials who once praised her as the Navy's finest. And then she spoke. My name is Lieutenant Commander Amara Shaw, Navy SEAL, Sniper Unit Echo 01. 4 tours, 32 confirmed operations. I've led missions others refuse to touch. I've lost friends in deserts, in rainforests, and in oceans, men and women who believed our oath meant something. I didn't disobey orders. I followed the one order that never changes: protect this country at all costs. The room was silent, every head locked on her. When I made that call, I had 60 seconds to choose between protocol or people. I chose people, and I'd do it again. If that makes me dangerous, so be it. But don't confuse silence with guilt. I kept my mouth shut to protect operations this courtroom isn't even cleared to know exist. But now that my rank's been declassified, she turned to the judge and slowly lifted her cuffed hands. I am a Tier 1 special warfare operator with black clearance. I don't answer to this courtroom. I answer to the Constitution, and I have upheld it in blood, sweat, and silence. Not a single breath echoed after her words. The judge didn't even bang his gavel. He just sat back, stunned. Even the bailiff, who had placed the cuffs on her, looked away in shame. The admiral stood then and said only one thing: remove her restraints. The judge ordered a full recess to review new evidence, but everyone in the courtroom knew the verdict had already changed. Behind the scenes, phones rang nonstop. Calls were made to the Pentagon, to Langley, to people whose names weren't recorded anywhere official. Amara sat in a private chamber with the admiral, whose expression was hard to read. You made enemies, he said, powerful ones. I saved lives, she replied. They don't care. He handed her a folder labeled Directive 87 Violet. Inside were images from satellite feeds, classified transcripts, and a letter signed by the Secretary of Defense. This is the proof that exonerates you, he said, but it also confirms the U.S. was nearly compromised, and you were the one who stopped it. Some won't forgive you for that. Amara nodded. Let them try. He chuckled grimly. You're not done, Lieutenant Commander. In fact, you're being reassigned. Quietly, you'll be off the books. No press, no medals, but full clearance and access. A ghost, she said softly. He nodded. One the nation needs. Back in court, the judge dismissed the charges without trial. All counts against Lieutenant Commander Shaw are vacated. The court record will be sealed. This hearing is concluded. No apology, no ceremony. Just silence and a closed door. Reporters shouted questions, but Amara was gone before any could see her leave, back through a military tunnel, into a black vehicle, and toward another mission she hadn't yet been told about. She didn't look back. They'd cuffed her to shame her, but all they'd done was wake up a warrior they couldn't control. Months passed, and Amara vanished from public view. Rumors swirled. Some said she'd retired, others claimed she'd defected, but the truth lived in shadows, in redacted files, and encrypted servers buried in intelligence hubs across the globe. She wasn't just reassigned, she was upgraded. Now part of Project Sentinel, Amara operated beyond conventional command. Missions came encoded in puzzle fragments, delivered through quantum channels. Her identity scrubbed from military databases, but her actions still rippled across the globe. In Syria, a terrorist cell mysteriously collapsed overnight. In Eastern Europe, a cyber weapon vanished before launch. In the Pacific, a stolen warhead was recovered with no casualties. Each operation bore the signature of precision only one person could deliver. One day, deep inside a secure base in Virginia, a junior analyst stumbled across a fragment of her file. He gasped, "She's real." The general beside him simply nodded. "She's more than real. She's the reason we sleep at night, Meanwhile, Amara stood atop a mountain ridge, wind in her hair, weapons slung across her back. She didn't need recognition, applause, or medals. They'd tried to shackle her once, but now she moved freer than any of them ever would. She was a seal, a sniper, a shadow, and they would never see her coming again.